Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Sponsored by Gametime. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Welcome back to the Raider Squad Show with myself, Chantel Chan, joined alongside Lincoln Kennedy and Q Meyers. Thank you so much for rocking out with us this morning. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. And it's officially training camp day. The rookies are going to report, but we've got a full show today and lots to talk about. The Locked On Network put out their NFL top 100 players. We're going to get into that. A couple of Raiders on that list. Defensive coordinator ratings that were put out by the Pro Football Network. It was put out a couple of weeks ago, but Patrick Graham is ranked on this. And we're going to talk about if it's a fair rating or not. And also, we talked a little bit about Jakobi Meyers in the last episode. It is his contract year. We're going to talk about if the Raiders should offer him an extension in terms of a long-term deal. So we're going to get into that. But we got to start off with Raiders training camp, guys, because this is the biggest news. We wait all year for this. Essentially, now it's time, right? Like, I see you laughing over there, but this is what we wait for, because as soon as you find out that the Raiders aren't making the playoffs, then you're just like looking forward to the draft. You're looking for that first free agency day, and then you're looking forward to the draft. And then there's a couple of moves that you're excited about, but then you're just like, I need to get to training camp, right? That's how it goes for me when I look at it. And so we're here. The rookies are going to report, and this is a huge day because arguably, everyone's kind of saying this is the best draft class that the Raiders have had for a while. Now we're going to find that out in a few years. We won't know that just yet, but we'll start off with you, Link. How important is this for the rookies? They're reporting first in terms of people that don't know how this goes. And I mean, we can watch Hard Knocks all we want, but we don't really, really know what goes on, right? If you're looking in from the outside. So, how is this first day for those rookies? And is it more of like, I don't want to say orientation because they're already part of OTAs and whatnot, but how does this, first day go for the rookies?
Chantel and Q, we're talking about practice, as AI would say, right? We're talking about practice.
Not a game.
We're talking about practice, not a game. It's a practice. Look, here's the thing.
Practice, man.
The great thing about the beginning of starting the football, training camp is that football season is right around the corner. If you're not a baseball fan, you're living in a sort of, a sort of, place where it's like, dude, what am I supposed to watch? What am I supposed to look at? Football season is coming. That's where we're at. The thing about the training camp and get the orientation for the rookies is the fact that you're getting used to being back in the system. Most of them been part of the OTAs, so you know how Pete Carroll wants to run things. That's the big thing. And now you get back and you get back into football. You get ready for training. You're going to training camp, and now the pads come on. When the veterans show up, the pads will be there. So now you have a full team practice. You have full team construction. You have what we actually look at as football. You can't do it in shorts and helmets. It's coming. So Q, I know you'll probably agree with this, but when it comes to these rookies getting orientated and getting things done, it's a chance for the rookies to commit to them personally, rather than the whole team. But more importantly, focus on what they can do, what they can bring the team, and harness that.
And this is the first time for the rookies really that they have an opportunity to go out there and practice on the daily and prepare for an upcoming season, and they don't have to worry about anything else. Right? It's not about college. It's not about going to class. It's not about, getting your GPA, making sure you're good to go, and none of that other stuff. It's all about the grind. It's all about welcome to the league. It's all about trying to get in your playbook and see, where you fit in and where you need to improve and how quickly you can improve. And it's all brand new, right? And so whenever we get to go to, like, say, rookie camp and they get their first little taste, and like Lincoln said, there's no pads then, so there's no real taste. They're just going through the motion and seeing how quickly practice goes from, spot to spot, station to station. They're already starting to kind of, wow, this is a big deal. Now, when it becomes a training camp moment, it's going to be oh man, okay, these guys are fighting for jobs. These guys have families. These guys have mortgages. These guys have, so they're not out there trying to let a rookie outshine them, or, just there's a lot of different things that go into it. And, being able to talk with people like Lincoln who've been there, done that, they understand what it's like. And it's a lot of guys will come out of it in rookie camp and when the rookies start to report and start to, almost like they're trying to get a 40-yard dash, and guys like Lincoln will be like, look here, look, young fella, this is a marathon. It ain't a sprint. So you're going to have to be able to, maintain this. So you got to really, kind of checks and balances. So it's always interesting to talk to these rookies and get their experience of training camp, and then kind of compare it and contrast it with the veterans that know what to expect.
And I will say this, just a little addendum for me. I didn't go through rookie camp.
Right.
Contract dispute, my first round. So I didn't get there till after the veterans had arrived. But I will say this from knowing it, like Hugh has mentioned, it's getting orientated. If you haven't been there, if you don't know what the way things go, you're in the facility, you're getting the layout of facility, and more importantly, you're getting layout of practice schedule and stuff like that. So these couple of days are important for guys. You want to try to create the sort of communication, and you want them to come together and try to be part of the team when the veterans show up. And I'm sure there'll be veterans sprinkled around there working out, and I'm sure Max Crosby's over there because he's all the time. So
always there.
Like him, are looking forward to this time and can't wait for the regular training camp to start.
And you kind of mentioned it, Link. You said it right there. Like, you came after the vets. And I think one of the important pieces of this training camp is a guy like Jack Bech. And we actually just had some news break yesterday. Adam Schefter had tweeted out that he said, quote, the next big domino in the second round has fallen. 49ers second round pick Alfred Collins, the number 43rd overall selection, reached an agreement on a 4-year, $10.3 million deal that includes over $9 million guaranteed. And so that's supposed to help those other second rounders, finally ink those deals. And I think there was like 30 of them that
30.
were waiting. Yeah, 30 of them that were waiting. So you mentioned it. You weren't there. You came after the vets, and Jack Bech, I'm guessing he's not there. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything. Yeah, I haven't heard anything pop off on my Twitter that a deal has been signed. However, this is some good movement. This is good news, because this means that now Bech will probably get something done, and that he'll show up, and there will be a deal on the table. So he's not there today. So, Link, I want to ask you, when you're not there that first day and you show up after the vets, how is that mentally? But also, is it a little bit tougher to get adjusted, or do you just I guess it depends on the player on how they can kind of just, get into the full swing of things?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Chantel, when you talk about it depends on the player. The fact is that everyone reacts differently to the circumstances that are around them. And more importantly, when you talk about Jack Bech, yes, we would love to have him in a facility. And speaking for the Raiders, you'd love to have him here. But at the same point, you never come in between a guy and his money, and whatever the situation is. And so when you talk about a player not being there, he's behind. He's behind what we're doing, what we're trying to progress as a team. But you can quickly bring it up to speed. It's up to the individual. So it all depends on the individual. It all depends on their absorption of the scenario and situations around them. But I think Jack will be fine. He'll be okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence that Jack will be fine. The good thing is that, he did have OTAs. He did have mandatory minicamp. He had rookie camp. He was there for all of that, working under a waiver and an insurance policy. So just in case there was any kind of injury, I think it was great news when Alfred Collins signed as the number 43 overall pick, because nobody wants to be the guy that bucks the trend. Nobody wants to be the guy that caves and says, well, you know what, I just want to be the camp, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign the deal. So anyone after 43, now you can feel free to fall in line. Okay, so if you got 88% of your contract fully guaranteed, which this is all a fully guaranteed type situation, now you can feel comfortable that everyone behind 43, nobody's going to get a fully guaranteed contract. So he got 88% of his, contract fully guaranteed. Last year, number 58 got around 52% of their contract fully guaranteed. So you can estimate that Bech will probably get about 60 to 65, but he can do that now. I mean, all these guys have, kind of deals on the table with their agents. They've been talking back and forth. Now that this precedent has been set right there at 43, they can estimate, and now guys can start to sign. I'm not concerned at all now that the dominoes are starting to drop, like Shefty said. I think that you'll see Bech in there either today or the next day. I don't want to guarantee anything because nothing is guaranteed, but veterans report on the 22nd. I'm pretty sticking sure that Bech is going to be there before then.
Yeah, and it brings up the conversation because obviously training camp, that's a time where you want rookies to show out. And we talked about arguably, we're going to find out in a few years if this is one of the best Raiders draft classes that they've had in a minute. And we're going to go through kind of, who might surprise us? Is it a name that we're not thinking of? Is it a name that we haven't talked about yet? Because we've talked about Thornton, we've talked about Porter, we've talked about these guys a lot because there's so much excitement. Obviously, Ashton Genty as well. Is he going to be one of the top running backs in the league? We're going to find out this season. But when you take a look at who the Raiders have drafted, Q, will go with you first. Who do you think might surprise us that maybe we haven't talked about a lot? Or is it one of those main guys that we have talked about, like Thornton and Porter? Right. Yeah, or obviously Genty.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't think that those guys will be a surprise. Like Genty goes out and shines in training camp. He's supposed to, right? We all expect him to. Bech, I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of us expect a lot from. Darian Porter, we talked a lot about him. Thornton, we talked a lot about him. I'm looking in the trenches. I really am. I'm looking at Caleb Rogers, the guard out of Texas Tech, because I feel like the guard positions are up for grabs in training camp. I think that competition is there. So I'm looking at the 3rd round picks, Caleb Rogers and also Charles Grant, right? Charles Grant's a tackle out of William & Mary. So I think that he may have a little bit of a learning curve. So I feel like if there's one guy that may make some noise out of training camp, it'll be Caleb Rogers on the offensive line. And honestly, I'll flip it over to the other side of the trenches for the defense. I'll look at the defensive tackles, right? JJ Pegues, the 6th round pick out of Ole Miss, and then the Tonka truck, right? Tonka Hemingway, the 4th round pick out of South Carolina. And really, especially with the Christian Wilkins situation, since we don't know what's going on with him, these guys may be needed, right? I mean, I know that they re-signed Butler. I think that was a really good signing. I know they got Laulu. That's really cool, and he's a good player. You saw what he was able to do last year. But the more depth you have at that defensive tackle position, the better. And so I think that we'll hear about those guys in the trenches. We'll probably hear a lot about them throughout the course of training camp, and somebody might step up and surprise. And, the kind of the comparison I've been making with this situation, this conversation is last year we went into training camp and we weren't talking about DJ Glaze. We were talking about Brock Bowers. We were talking about JPJ. JPJ didn't perform because he was banged up, so he was in the tub and he wasn't out there performing. But DJ Glaze got thrown into the mix when Thayer Mumford got injured early in training camp, and all of a sudden we come out talking about, hey man, there's this guy out of Maryland who, he did pretty good against Max. I mean, he didn't win every rep, but he didn't just get blown up. I mean, the guy looks pretty good, and all of a sudden DJ Glaze is starting right tackle. So we go in with the plan, and then all of a sudden the plan gets quickly adjusted because someone will step up and make a name for themselves.
Chantel, this is the first year that we had a chance to work together. Q and I have gone back for many years. I don't put much emphasis in rookies at all.
Good to know.
Just keeping it straight. Look, the thing is that there is a learning curve. There's a learning curve with the speed, the game, and overall expectations that rookies are, when they come into this league, they're going to face. Having been there and said that and done that, I will say this, that yes, there are guys that can make their great impact. And Q has mentioned a lot of names that can have an impact on this team going forward. But we won't know until we see them.
Yep.
We won't know them until we see them at game speed. And unfortunately, we have to wait past preseason because you're not going to see the same game in preseason that you see in a regular season. And I'm not saying that to just, push off the question and not answer the question. The thing is that there will be a time where it comes to where you have to put on your helmet, you have to strap it up, you have to tape it up, and you have to go. And it's not going to be for it doesn't count. This is just practice, all that other stuff. There is going to be a time where these guys are going to face an unrecognized position. Yes, football is football. Doesn't matter where you play that, no matter, football is football. But there's a level of competition that is going to escalate. And whether you're a tackle or guard or anybody else on this offensive line, that is a key that I'm watching that comes into the season. There is a time where you're going to see that, oh my goodness, this guy is fast. Yeah. I never blocked a Khalil Mack. I never blocked, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. And you've got to be ready to go. You haven't, you've seen Max Crosby in practice,
right?
But you haven't seen Max Crosby in game mode. That's what it translates to.
Remember that? Well, it was Big Mike. Michael Mayer, when he was a rookie. And Max Crosby walked into the league. Mike was like, whoa.
Exactly. And that's the thing. So, it's when we talk about what we can expect from the rookie class, I want them to contribute, obviously, because I think they're essential. The reason why the Raiders drafted who they drafted is because they needed to fill those positions on the team. I get all that. But you've got a wait and see moment. Oh, my gosh. Whenever Darian Porter or so on and so forth, these guys, oh, my gosh. Oh, he really is fast. And he really is quick. Oh, it really does go fast. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and I think with the rookies, we're just going to have to see how everything plays out. But, I think Hugh made a really good point in terms of, where he's going to be taking a look whether it's the O-line with a guy like Caleb or even defensive tackle, because we don't really know what's going on with Christian Wilkins.
Yes.
We have no idea. And, I feel like a guy like Hemingway could be very interesting. He could step in. And then you're also talking about the secondary, which we've talked a bunch about. But a guy like Porter could end up landing a starting position.
Yeah.
The one good thing about this is the Raiders drafted 11 guys, right? That was a lot of draft picks. Normally you don't see that. You see 8 or 9, whatever. They had 11 guys. They knew that they needed to fill a lot of holes and provide some more depth because the Raiders, track record of draft hasn't been great, in the last handful of years. I thought last year they did good. And this year I feel like, again, we won't know the actual results for a few years, but it feels like that they did pretty good. Pete Carroll has a history of young guys being able to get, a lot out of young guys. Going back to USC, he's able to get a lot out of freshmen. He was able to get a lot out of, young guys there at Seattle. He just has a track record of being able to relate to the young guys, giving them an early opportunity, getting them before they get stuck in their own ways, their old habits, and just this is how we're going to do things, and getting those guys to adapt pretty quickly. I agree with Lincoln. You can't count on rookies because you just don't know what to expect from them. But when you have a head coach that's able to, kind of instill that confidence in them, it makes I feel like the transition a little bit smoother. I won't say easy. I don't think there's anything in the National Football League that's easy. So I'll say maybe a little bit smoother. They'll have some bumps in the road. But as Pete Carroll told us at the end of mandatory minicamp, you let these guys play early. By midseason, these guys are clicking.
And just an added caveat. Here's the thing. I don't want these guys to think they can't do it.
Right.
I don't want to push that they won't do it. My thing is that you have to do it. And look, this generation is really different than when I came up. These guys read a lot of their press or listen to a lot of scenarios, people talking about them, how good they can be and all that. I'm not of that mindset. My thing is that you have to show me something.
Yep.
If you want me to talk about you, you have to show me something. I know I go on record a few years back for not talking about a guy. I always pushed out his number because he hadn't shown me something. He was a free agent. I'm not going to get into his name right now because it's not important. He's no longer on the team. But look, you've got to show me before I talk about you, before I anoint you, and before I give you accolades. Oh, this guy's playing out of his mind. Show me something.
But that's your point.
Level.
That's your point, Lincoln. You just said, right? You only said his number, and he's not on the team.
That's exactly right.
That's the point.
You already know. You know me, Q.
Yep.
I'm explaining for Chantel and our audience. This is, look, when we break this down, and we'll do this throughout the season, we'll break down gameplay, we'll break down plays, we'll break down games, all that stuff. And we'll talk about these guys. Don't get full of yourself. This is a highly competitive league, just like any other professional league. And you're only as good as your last outing, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So you're only good as the last play that you put on tape. Get better. Thrive to get better. This is what I say. This is what I would say to those young men in the locker room. Thrive to get better. Everyone's not going to make the team. You're going to have some camp bodies. And I feel bad for them because but I will always say this. There are 31 other jobs out there. Earn it. Earn your space on this team. Earn your spot on this team. Earn your right to play in the National Football League. Nothing is given to them. That's why I don't pay that much credence to the rookies.
Yeah, I think maybe during the season we should have like a show me something segment for Link, because we know for Link you got to show him something and
show me something.
And don't play with Taco Tuesday, because I'm learning everything about Link. So just a couple of things right there, right?
Chantel, they don't play with Taco Tuesday.
Raider Nation, you heard him. You heard him right there. Coming up on the other side, though, we're going to be talking about Jakobi Meyers, as this is the final year of his 3-year deal. So we're going to be getting into if the Raiders should be looking into locking him up early before other teams do. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. All right. Well, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Whether I'm placing a same game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And we know baseball's on a little bit of a break today, but back tomorrow. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys. So there's a lot of talk about the receiver group heading into this year, but I think we've talked about it a little bit in terms of what the Raiders, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly might be expecting out of a guy like Jakobi Meyers. And when you're on the last year of your deal, I think it was like a $33 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is, I'll double check with that. But when you're playing on the final year of your deal and you have a new coach, you have a new offensive coordinator, but you were kind of one of the bright spots last season. Like, let's keep it real here. Should the Raiders be looking to lock up Jakobi Meyers a little bit early? Because there are a lot of young guys on the team. Like, they drafted Bech, they drafted Thornton, and they're hoping to get something out of those guys. But to have a veteran like Meyers who has been productive, Q, we'll start off with you. Should the Raiders be looking to kind of lock him up? Because I've been on Twitter and I've been on YouTube looking at all these videos of the Raiders. And some of the fans want the Raiders organization like SpyTech to lock him up a little bit early so they have Jakobi Meyers. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, personally, I'm a fan of what he does. I think that the way he goes about his business, the way that he handles his day-to-day, the way that you never see his body language being bad, even through tough times. You don't see his head down. You see him out there blocking. You see him out there, finding ways to get open. I think that Jakobi does a really good job. I was really happy that he was able to go over 1,000 yards last season for the first time in his career. Again, I like to see guys achieve certain goals that they have for themselves and obviously for the team as well. I know he wants to be with the team long term. He told us at mandatory minicamp that, obviously I want an extension. That's for the guys upstairs. I'll let them handle that. I do believe that the Raiders should take care of him. The question is, what's the value going to be? I mean, you see these kind of contracts that are being rolled out to these wide receivers, and it's big time money, right? I mean, big time money. There's guys that are looking for contracts that are trying to get $30 million a year. I don't know what and how they value Jakobi Meyers, and this is something that Lincoln will probably be able to answer better than me. But I feel like when you have a new staff year after year after year, they might not know 100% what their value is to that, for that player at that stage of the game. It's easy to turn on the film and say, okay, this is what he does on the field, but you don't really get to know with all that constant turnover. You don't really get to know who the person is, how much you value him in his organization, what kind of leader are they on and off the field. It's hard to get to know these guys. So it's hard to say, hey, John Spytek, go out and roll out a 3 or 4 year deal contract extension for this guy, Jakobi Meyers, that you just met. And that goes for Colton Miller, and that goes for, other guys that you can see, that are in contract years as well with the silver and black. So I think sometimes it's a slower process when you have a new staff in place, and they just got to go out there and earn it. And to Jakobi's credit, I mean, he was there when it was voluntary. He was there when it was mandatory. He's always there, and he's always working. And, I think he'll go out there and earn it. Me personally, if I was them, I would definitely give him a contract extension.
The thing is that it's more of a complex question to answer for me. And I break it down like this. Mainly, in most offenses, you have an X and a Z. Devontae Adams played the X last year, and just to give an example. And Jakobi Meyers has played the Z. This is a year for Jakobi Meyers, a seventh-year veteran, going in the seventh year out of North Carolina State, who was a quarterback back in college. This is the year where he really comes to age. Before you give him big money, which he's going to be expecting, especially as Q has mentioned with the receivers that are getting out there, you have to see growth. There has been, this is no slight on Jakobi, but in my estimation, he's been like a one-trick pony. There are things that he does well. There are things that he needs to improve upon. Tremendous catch radius. He can throw and he can catch anything that's put around him, which does well for him, bodes well for him. But he's got to get better in his route running. and he's got to get better in his delivery. More importantly, he's got to create that ultimate dynamic chemistry from Geno Smith, projected starting quarterback with the Raiders. I say that to say this: going into his final year of his contract, I'm not ready to give him a contract extension until I see that growth. Because if I'm going to make him a number one, a primary receiver, I need to see that he can be there and do that. Now, it also comes twofold. It comes from Chip Kelly committing more roles to the Z receiver, putting him in positions to get him open and stuff like that. But it also comes out to execution. So the short answer to your question, Chantel and Q, is no. I don't think you offer a contract extension just yet. Wait till around middle of the season. Then you look to tie him up for his remaining years as a Raider.
And it's funny, I'll co-sign that. I think that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think that they are going to wait for every reason that Lincoln just pointed out. I think they're going to do the same thing with Colton Miller for every reason that Lincoln just pointed out. I think they might even do the same thing with Daniel Carlson. And Daniel Carlson, I think that we all kind of know who he is. We call him Cash Money Carlson for a reason. But I would not be surprised. And Lincoln, again, this goes back to me talking about a brand new staff. Yeah. When you haven't been with these players for all these years, you know, you do need to see something. A lot of times you need to prove who you are, even though you may think I'm already proven, but you're not proven to them.
True story.
And for a guy like Jakobi Meyers, this is the perfect chance for him to kind of prove that he can be the number one option, the number two option as a wide receiver. But because now he has a guy like Geno, right? I think last year wasn't the most fair assessment because of what was going on at quarterback. And then obviously the O-line, everything goes through the O-line. We've been through this. But for a guy like Jakobi Meyers, when you're seeing them draft guys like Bech and Thornton, does that put a little bit of more extra pressure on you? Or do you just kind of, because you are a veteran, know how to deal with that? Link will
It should.
Yeah.
It should. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You should always be looking over your shoulder. Yep. Look, you're not getting, if you're not getting better, you're getting passed by. The thing is that they'll draft receivers. I was always of the mindset, guys, and this is just personally speaking, I was always the mindset, if they drafted an offensive lineman, I wasn't worried because I was for sure in my position, but I also knew I had to go out there and prove it. You see what I'm saying? So this is, you can draft for the depth, you can draft for the future, you can do all that stuff, but you got to go out and prove it. And that's the key for a guy like Jakobi Meyers, get better. Yep. Show that you deserve to be there. Show that you can't go on with a game without me. And that's the thing that these young guys have to understand. If you're not getting better, you're being passed up.
Yep. Facts. Nothing else to say on that. That's facts. I mean, that's exactly what it is right there. I mean, look, if you're the best guy in your gym, you better find another gym.
Absolutely.
In terms of his leadership, though, how much do you think that will play an effect this season? Because, I mean, stats don't lie, numbers don't lie, and I think he will have a chance to produce on that end. But in terms of his leadership role, which I think will be really big this year because there are a lot of young guys on the team, how do you think that plays an effect on a year of where you're trying to get, an extension or you're trying to get your deal? Do you feel like they look at that a little bit more too, if you are a veteran, if you can, hold down a group or, just be that mentor?
I think it's, what is it? What do you mean to the team? What is your overvalue? What is your value to the team on the field, off the field, leadership, locker room? How do you conduct your business? Who are you as a professional? I think all that plays a factor, right? And especially when you have a guy like Pete Carroll, who's always about competition and always about, just getting better, and guys that love football. How much of that energy and juice do you bring to, the building every single day? Do you walk in the building as a guy that needs to get motivated, or do you walk in as the guy that's a motivator? Right. I mean, are you the guy that has to get, Pete Carroll to pump you up and go one-on-one with you on hoops before you get ready to go and get ramped up? Or are you looking for Pete and like, hey, man, let's get on the court? You know what I mean? Like, I just think there's about handling your business a certain way. I think all aspects play a factor in this.
Leaders aren't born, they're made. Yep. And the thing is you go out there on a 3rd down and 6 in a critical part of the game, and you catch your first down, yards after the catch, and you're hustling. You get up and you throw the ball down and you're riled up. That pumps up the team. That's leaders by example. You know what I mean? Whether you want to be boisterous and want to sit there and talk about it in a huddle, and go out there and show me something to do. You need players to stand up and to make a play. When you look at Max Crosby and all the thing he does for the defense, you watch Max Crosby get after the quarterback, get into the backfield, disrupt a play, and he celebrates. Everyone's fired up.
Yeah. This
is how you build a team. And this is why, guys like Jakobi Meyers can come in big. You're at a critical point in your career. And yes, you might be going through a contract situation, but that doesn't affect your play. If you rise up, you stand up, and you play that much better than, say, the guy next to you or the other guy on the field, that does wonders for your teams. That's a great movement. That's a great moment for this team. And that's what you need to see. If you're a new coaching staff coming in, you don't know what these guys can do. You've seen film.
Mm-hmm.
How do they do under your system? And how do they thrive under your system? That's why it's important.
And, last season he had 4 touchdowns, 87 receptions, over 1,000 yards receiving. Those are really good numbers. What would be a successful year for Jakobi Meyers? Is it hitting that 1,500 mark? Is it, getting over 5 touchdowns? Like, do you think that will really matter in terms of the deal? Of course, it will a little bit because stats do matter. But, do you feel like it's going to matter more than his impact?
Taking all things in consideration, Q and Chantel, the thing is that there's only one ball. We got Brock Bowers, we got Ashton Dente. It's really a hard thing to say what numbers would matter. But I think the golden number is being over 1,000 yards receiving. I think that's a huge number. Touches and touchdowns, and it's hard to quantify because, like I said, there's only one football. And you've got other players you need to spread the football around. So let's be realistic. Is he going to be targeted that often? But I think that, the Raiders have been without, and especially since Devontae Adams quit on the team, the Raiders have been without a true possession receiver. So who are you going to with that 3rd down and 6?
Right.
Because the thing is that you need to spread the ball around. There are going to be teams that are going to commit to Brock Bowers taking him out of the equation, just like teams have committed to Travis Kelce over the years, taking him out of the equation. There are going to be teams that are going to take him out of the equation. You got to find some other guys to go to. There's going to be key moments for Jakobi Meyers and others to come up. And I think that's essential when you talk about the possibility of him being a long-time Raider.
Right. And on top of that, it's impactful yards. It's impactful catches. It's impactful touchdowns. Like, how are you impacting the game day to day? Like, towards the end of the season last year, I mean, look, I was sitting in the press box, and I'm not shy to say this. I was sitting in the press box at Allegiant Stadium counting every yard that Jakobi had because I wanted him to achieve his individual goal, getting over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. I know that was something that meant something to him. So in a season that we all knew was lost, that was something I was rooting for. Just like I was rooting for Brock Bowers to, break all these records as a rookie tight end. Again, when you have a lost season like the Raiders had last year, it all of a sudden becomes about different individual accolades, something that they're trying to achieve, goals that they're trying to achieve. I think that you could see a scenario where Brock Bowers' numbers are slightly down. You could see a scenario where Jakobi Meyers' numbers are slightly down because you do have, as Lincoln pointed out, Ashton Dente. You have Bowers. You have Big Mike coming back. How does he factor into this? Thornton, Trey Tucker, right? You could have less numbers as a player and have a bigger impact on the game moving forward. So I think it's not really about the numbers. It's on the impact of the game.
And we'll definitely be watching Jakobi Meyers' impact this season. And hopefully they can, sign him to an extension because I think there are a lot of Jakobi Meyers fans. And he did show out last season, one of the bright spots on the team this year. It's going to be a little bit more interesting, though. Coming up on the other side, a guy that might have a prove-it year as well, defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. Great season last year. If you liked all of that, we'll get to that on the other side. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. The defense, Link, Q. Last year, I think we all liked the defense. It was surprising. I don't remember the last time the Raiders had a defense like that. But Pro Football Network, they put out a list, and I feel like they might kind of be underrating a guy like Patrick Graham and what he did. They had him ranked number 22. Now, I don't know if that's also because there's been a lot of changes in terms of the pieces that the Raiders now have on defense, and there's a lot more questions as well. Your guys' thoughts on Patrick Graham being ranked number 22 in the NFL, and what would kind of be a successful season for him? We'll get into that. But Q, just your thoughts first on that ranking.
Well, I mean, when you have a team that wins 4 games, you're not going to get high accolades for any of your coordinators or really any of your players. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I do give Patrick Graham a lot of credit because this is a defense that I thought was going to be great. Like back in Costa Mesa during training camp, the way that they were dominating the Raiders offense, I was like, man, this is going to be a really good defense. I kind of got duped because I didn't realize how bad the Raiders offense was. And that was on me, right? That was me being incorrect. And then they started getting hit with injuries. So they lost guys like Max Crosby. They lost the big fella, Christian Wilkins. They lost Jacorian Bennett. They lost Marcus Epps. They started losing guys, but the defense still stuck together. And I believe Max Crosby said, I think we were still top 15, even though we were, hit with so many injuries. Malcolm Kuntz, before the season even got started, they lost him, right? So there was a lot of, just just bad luck that went with the Raiders and their defense last year, and that was supposed to be the biggest strength of the team. I still think that they have an opportunity to be a strength of the team. The only difference is this is a very young defense now. I mean, you look at it, the secondary, I couldn't tell you today who's going to be the starting corners, right? The linebackers are all brand new. Right, and they're all veterans, but they're all brand new. Landon Roberts, the Devin White, and you've got Jermaine Pratt, who just signed the other day, right? I mean, so you have a lot of questions on this defense. You know what Max Crosby's going to bring to the table now that he's healthy. He only played 12 games last year, first time in his career that he's ever missed any action. So I feel pretty confident that he's going to be back fully ready to go and put up another Max Crosby type season. Malcolm Kuntz want to see if he can build off what he did at the back end of 2023. Does Tyree Wilson, does he show up to the party and all of a sudden become the guy that they expected when they drafted him number 7 overall a couple seasons ago? So there's a lot of questions on this defense, but I think that the fact that the Raiders made a priority to bring back Patrick Graham, give him a raise when there was a couple other organizations that were looking at him, even like a team like Cincinnati to be their defensive coordinator, I think that tells you how much confidence that Pete Carroll has in Patrick Graham and the continuity of having him, and especially Robbie Leonard. I think he's not talked about enough as a coach on that defensive line. I think Robbie Leonard's a really good D-line coach. So, yeah, you ranked 22nd, but again, I mean, it all starts back where, you won 4 games last year. You're not going to get high accolades.
Here's the thing, guys. Coaches coach, players play.
Yep.
Coach can be as generous as and maybe the next, I don't even know how to put it in perspective in the words, the next great savant, but players have to orchestrate that. And so coaches coach, players play. What Patrick Graham has done, the reason why he got the job in the first place, in my opinion, is that he knew how to beat Kansas City. And that was one of the biggest thorns in the Raiders side. Still continues to be, especially his time when he was with the New York Giants. He had a defense that could slow down this Kansas City offense. I still think he has the wherewithal and philosophy to do it, but in order to do it, you got to have the players that can implement it. So much to Q's point, you're only as good as your players out there orchestrating what you do. This is a defensive identity. The identity of the Las Vegas Raiders is a defensive-minded team. There's no doubt about it. Is the 22nd ranking a little bit slight? Depending on how you look at it. It can be there and there. But when you talk about the graciousness or the greatness of a defense, you look in recent history, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, they were also known for their defense. A lot of people talk about their offense because that's what gets people to watch the TV and everything else. But their defense is pretty damn good. And that's the success that you want to sort of go after. What Patrick Graham is going to have to do with this season, especially with this new cluster of guys, is he's got to find a scenario or a chemistry. He's got to put together, like a chemist, he's got to put together a defense that works with the guys that he has. Yes, you can turn Max Crosby loose in the front defensive line, but you have to get also production out of your defensive tackles. You have to get production out of your linebackers. You have to get production out of your secondary. If you're going to play a lot more zone, these guys have to be in a place where they have to be in the right place at the right time. I say that to say this: all this stuff has to come together, and I think it will. I really do. I have all the amount of favorite and thoughts for Patrick Graham going forward. I have all the amount of excitement watching this defense come together, but there's a lot of young guys in it. That secondary is going to be the biggest key for me, guys. How they come together and how they make it work.
And I think you made a great point too. The fact that Pete Carroll and his staff decided we're going to bring back a guy like Patrick Graham, give him a raise, that means that they have a lot of confidence in him.
They do.
And I hate rankings before the season. So
it just means the training camp's around the corner. Whenever the rankings start coming out, that just means that training camp's around the corner.
Yeah, and this is a Raiders defense that allowed 333 yards last season. They allowed 46 touchdowns. They were ranked in the top 15. Yeah. So in order for this season to be a success, because obviously we're looking forward, we're doing like these rankings and taking a look at the list and it's driving us nuts. But would top 15 be a success again? Like if they still land and they rank 15 overall in terms of defense, is that still a success? Or do you think we're going to want him to be a little bit better, in maybe the top 10? Or does it really, really matter as long as the defense is performing?
Look, I'll say this. I think it's pretty simple. Top 15 is fine as long as your offense scores more than 18 points a game.
True story.
That's the problem. The Raiders offense scored 18 points per game. That is the big issue, right? I mean, if they had scored, the funny thing about this is if they had averaged 24 points per game, they were ranked 24th in offense last year, right? Because they ranked only 18. They only scored 18 points a game. If they had scored 24 points a game, that was up there where Denver was. That was 10th. That's a huge gap. 6 more points a game is a huge jump. You go from being ranked 24th offensively to 10th. You're going to win some games. And, oh, by the way, Denver was in the playoffs, right? So, I mean, if you can get up there, and that's something Antonio Pierce said at his opening press conference. What are you trying to do? 24 points a game. That was the number that he had circled. Go back and listen to his opening press conference. He said, I need this team to get 24 points per game. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't able to get it done. The staff he had in place, the players he had in place weren't able, like Lincoln says, coaches coach, players plays. The players weren't able to go out there and execute it. But if they could find a way to score 6 more points, then they're going to be a lot better. So a top 15 defense is still going to be really good. It's going to keep you in a lot of games and give you the opportunity to get the ball back. But when you get the ball in your hand, you got to do something with it, right? You can't go to bed with it and just hold on to it. You got to go and put it in the end zone. And that's the problem. They didn't do that. Too many times they even got to the red zone and settled for 3 as opposed to getting a touchdown. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. You've got to score points. 15th ranked defense, I'll take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday, but I need points scored. I need more than 18.
No doubt. Great point, Q. You know, look at cover up the blemishes that are lost. Guys like Hobbs and Merrick, Spillman, these guys are lost. These guys were critical parts of that defense. You have to cover up. You have to have the other guys rise up and stand in that position, and more importantly, be commit to this defense. And I think they'll have that, but you have to. It's a wait and see. Much to your point, Chantel, if he is 15th ranked or in the top 15, yeah, obviously out of 32 teams, you'll take that because the defense is doing something. But much to Q's point, offense has got to do their part as well. Defense cannot be put on the board and in suspect positions and hard positions, turnovers and stuff like that, or a short field, and expect to stop these offenses in the NFL because these offenses, like I said, those guys on the other side of the ball get paid too. Yep. So you got to go out there and do it. But more importantly, taking care of their business. This is, as I said, and a team that identifies with defense. They are notoriously known for defense. Max Crosby is a standout. But how are other teams going to commit to him, to stopping him? Things like that. So that's why other guys have got to rise up. This team has got to play together. Offense has got to do their part. Special teams got to do their part. Can't just put it all on the defense to hold their own. They're not the 83 Bears.
And that's why you go right, facts, big facts. But that's why you go and draft a running back at number 6 like Ashton Genty as well, right? Because he's also going to help. You can have the top 15 defense, but if you have also time of possession, because you have a guy that's able to run the rock like we believe that Ashton Genty is going to be able to do. Now, again, he's got to go out there and do it, right? It looks great on paper. It looks great at Boise State. He's got to go out there and do it in the NFL. But if he is who everyone believes that he can be, that's also going to help the defense just by keeping the defense off the field and keeping the possession with the Raiders.
Yeah, and that was the thing that kind of happened last year. I felt like the defense was keeping the Raiders in games and even winning us games. I was like, is the defense winning us games here? Because it was so surprising that the defense was that great last year. Now, I'll say this, when you take a look at the AFC West and you look at Kansas City, the Chargers, and then obviously the Broncos, I feel like the Broncos got better defensively. Where would you kind of rank the Raiders in the AFC West? And I know it's hard to do because all of the new pieces, there's so many questions. We don't know how the secondary is going to look. We don't know what's going on with Christian Wilkins. But if we were just to take a look at it on paper, would you still believe that the Raiders are top 3 at least in the division? Link, will go with you first.
No, they're the bottom looking up. I'll give notable names to the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Most notable, the top of the division, the Chargers, the Broncos. I still think their defenses collectively are better than the Raiders.
Yep, they were all top 5. They were all top 5 last year. All 3 of theirs, the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Chiefs were all top 5 defenses last year. I think the Raiders have the opportunity to have a defense like that. I even said that last year. I puffed out my chest. I was all fired up. I was like, man, I feel like I'm 6'8" and about 255, right? I felt like the big man on campus. I'm like, man, they're going to have a stellar defense. I think they can. I think they can be a top 5 defense. I just, with the players that they have in place, led by Max Crosby, a healthy Christian Wilkins, and Malcolm Kuntz, that defensive line is going to make everybody better if they're able to get penetration to get to the quarterback and stop the run. But until they actually do it, we can't pencil them in there. Those other teams that we're talking about, the AFC West, they did it. They were all top 5 defenses from a year ago.
Yeah, I do think the Chargers are going to look a little bit different heading into this season. So I think maybe the Raiders can sneak into that 3rd position, but a lot of questions still have to be answered. And I think Malcolm Kuntz this year could have an amazing year.
Yeah.
And we might be talking about him a lot. When I take a look at the defense, he's one of the names that pops out to me because we know what Max Crosby means to this team.
Yep.
And I think Malcolm Kuntz has an opportunity to also be one of those guys. And then also, hopefully, Tyree Wilson ends up showing up this season, because I think
now you can't have both. You can't have both, Chantel, because they play the same position. You can't have both. So one has to stand out in the other. And the thing is because there's only one football, there's only so many plays. If Malcolm Kuntz is standing out and having a tremendous year, Tyree Wilson's on the sideline.
Yeah.
Or trying to figure out another place in him, another place for him to put him on the football field. So that's the thing. That's the conundrum that you come under if you're Patrick Graham. How do you coach these guys? Now, look, I've seen coaches in the past where I create like a NASCAR package.
Yep.
I the phrase, calling that phrase because I've heard other defenses use it, where you put 4 pass rushers on the field and pass rushing downs. So you can imagine a scenario, because Tyree Wilson is also a bigger guy. Imagine a scenario where Tyree Wilson moves into the defensive tackle position.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Kuntz outside, Max Crosby outside, and then you have another one, another defensive tackle that can ultimately create a pass rush. You could see that happening, but until you see it, until you sort of make it, an awareness or expose it, there's no way to preclude how can it can in fact impact the team.
Yeah, I'm all with the depth. I want there to be depth because it's a long season. Guys get injured. So, I think Kuntz is going to be that guy. But if Tyree can kind of be there and be a depth guy and show out, that's all I really need from him, to just show us something this season. We're going to have that Show Me Something segment this year. It's going to be link segment, but I'm going to hop on it sometimes just for
show me something.
Tyree. Yeah, exactly.
Is it bad that all I think of is mystical? Yeah, when I hear show me something, show me what you're working with.
Well, Q, you're going on a little bit of a perverted area, but
I'm trying to.
I go back to when I was playing. I remember Samuel Jackson did a playoff promo where he had something to show me something. Come on and show me something. It's playoffs.
That's funny.
So I go back to that one, and of course, the Missouri has a phrase, the show me something.
Yeah.
State. Yeah, I need to see it. I need to see it.
We're gonna get that mystical drop. We're gonna need it for that segment. It's too good. Coming up on the other side, though, the Locked On Network put out their top NFL 100 players list. We're gonna get into that. A couple of Raiders on that list. That's on the other side. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. So the Locked On Network is doing some really cool things. They put out a list, NFL's top 100 players. And this is really cool for them to do this because obviously we're on the Locked On Network, but also it kind of gives you a different outlook than the, I guess the other websites or magazines that kind of put out these lists every year. And I think, a lot of people had a say in these lists. And Max Crosby actually made the list and he came in at number 15. I'm going to read out the top 15 players, guys. They had Lamar Jackson, number 1, which I absolutely love. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Myles Garrett, Joe Burrow. Justin Jefferson was the first wide receiver on this list at number 6. Then you got Jamar Chase behind him at number 7. You got Micah Parsons from the Dallas Cowboys at number 8. Patrick Surtain from the Broncos. You got Saquon at number 10. Number 11 is TJ Watt. Number 12, Chris Jones from the Kansas City Chiefs. And then at number 15, you're going to have Max Crosby there as well. You guys, what are your thoughts on the list? And do you feel like they kind of got it right? Because Max Crosby is the defensive end at number 15 on this list.
Well, for me, and I'm glad you brought this up. I actually talked about it on the Locked On Raiders podcast today. The list, the top 100, that's always kind of like, subjective to just kind of what you're looking at and who's voting and who's making the picks. I really like to focus in on where is he ranked amongst his position, right? So on this list, as you mentioned, number 15, he's the 4th highest ranked defensive end, right? Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, then comes Max Crosby, followed by Trey Hendrickson. Max only played 12 games. So that shows you the respect that they have for Max Crosby, because he didn't have a Max Crosby type season. He was banged up. He got banged up week 2, finishing things off against Baltimore. So when you finish the season with 7.5 sacks and no forced fumbles and only played in 12 games, and you're still the 4th highest ranked defensive end across the top 100, according to the Locked On Podcast Network, I think that's showing you the respect. And if he has a full season like he normally does, he's up there around 1 or 2. He's arguing with Myles Garrett. He's arguing with Micah Parsons and TJ Watt. He's right up there. The one thing about Max, and I think that because I know he works on his game all the time and always wants to consistently improve, and he's done that since he's been in the league, I think he would tell you the one thing that TJ Watt does probably better than anybody else is force those fumbles. TJ Watt had 6 forced fumbles last year, 6 of them. Those are the game closers. Those are when you need that one play and you know that guy's coming, right? Everyone in the building knows that guy's coming and he's going to close out the deal. That's what Max Crosby, that's how he takes that next step. You start sealing the deal with a couple strip sacks at the end of the game, force a couple fumbles, get a couple fumble recoveries. That's how he takes his game to the next level. But ranked 4th when you only played in 12 games and had 7.5 sacks, which are all lows for your career, I had no problem with that ranking.
Yeah, speaking of Q, talking about mystical, shake it fast, show me what you're working with. I was reminded of a Janet Jackson song, "What Have You Done for Me Lately?"
Yeah,
right. That's what it comes down to. You mentioned those, Chantel. You mentioned those players that were in the top, that were ranked ahead of Max Crosby. Those were all impactful players. They all had big impacts on the outcome of games, and that's what that sort of resonates when you talk about ranking. What have you done for me lately? And that's what it comes down to. So much to Q's point, I think it's rightful. The rankings, I really don't put too much credence in it. I don't think it is slight, and the players shouldn't think of it as slight. If anything, when they started doing the top 100 on the NFL Network, I knew many players who would say, "Wait, why am I ranked, here at 67? Show me something. Right. Go out there and prove it. Go out there and prove your value, your worth." And all those players that are ranked before Max Crosby are all impactful players. Whether they're touching the ball or they're on a defense, they're all impactful players that have changed the outcome of games. That's where Max Crosby hopes to be. That's where Brock Bowers hopes to be, and he's in that top 50. So when you talk about Raiders and where they can be ranked, you have to show me something. You have to go out and do this. This defense does not get a lot of turnovers.
Right.
So you're not having a corner that's going to be a standout. You know what I mean? But you look at the corners that are within the top 100, they've had multiple interceptions. They had multiple turnovers. As far as the playmakers on the offensive side, they made multiple plays. So that's where you when it comes into these rankings, that's where it comes into value. You have to go out there and prove it. Show me something. Make a play. Make an impact. Make a difference. Like Janet Jackson said, "What have you done for me lately?"
Well, and to the point of when I was talking about strip sacks, Walt hit us in our comments and said, "I think Malcolm Koonce will be good for 4 forced fumbles in 2025." I only bring that up because when Malcolm Koonce broke out at the back end of 2023, when AP took over, he had 8 sacks in 9 games and 3 forced fumbles.
Yep.
That's wild. Yeah.
There's a thing about attacking the ball. So, and Khalil Mack was really good at this as well when he was a member of the Raiders and throughout the course of his career. He would sack the quarterback, but he would say, "I'd also sack the ball." I'm getting the quarterback, I'm getting him down, but I'm also trying to rip the ball out at the same time to get that forced fumble. Because as Lincoln says, the Raiders don't make turnovers. They don't create turnovers. They had 10 last year. 10. Or 13 total, 10 interceptions, but 13 total. That's not going to get it done.
No.
It's just not. You've got to be able to create turnovers, and part of that is getting to the quarterback, but also getting that ball out, stripping the ball, and either you recover it or let one of your brothers recover it, but somebody's got to be after the ball, and that's what Malcolm Koonce did really well in the second half of 2023.
And an added caveat for our audience, the reason why blind side tackles are paid more than any other position in the offensive line is because exactly point. You're protecting that blind side. There is so much that quarterback cannot see behind him, and the opportunity for turnover is so much greater. That's why you're protecting that blind side, that backside of that quarterback. Normally, if quarterbacks see him coming in, they'll try to protect the ball. But if a quarterback is going to pass and he's not aware of what's happening behind him, and you have a blindside quarterback, these guys are taught to strip that ball, to take that ball away, knock that ball down before the quarterback passes the ball. That's why it's absolutely critical to protect that backside. And that there are the opportunities for defensive ends to go after the ball.
And TJ Watt did a really good job of that last year, and he does a really good job of that, period. And the Raiders know because he got him multiple times last year. Right? He had 6 forced fumbles that he created, and you can do that. And I get it, like you said, the blind side, the tackle, they get paid more because they are able to protect a little bit better. But if you're one of those elite edge rushers, as Max Crosby, as TJ Watt, as Myles Garrett, you can find a way to strip that ball and at least cause some havoc, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think when Max Crosby starts getting those forced fumbles, because there's not going to be all eyes on him on the defense where he's facing a lot of pressure, I feel like that will elevate his game, but also elevate the Raiders defense. But Q, I really liked how you looked at it, because you looked at it as in, well, there's only like 4 guys ahead of him, right? Number 15. That's great. So now let's move to the other guy on the list in the top 50, Brock Bowers. There's only one guy ahead of him, number 22, George Kittle. So they got Brock Bowers at number 38. I think that's pretty fair if you have Kittle ahead of him and at number 22, and Kittle is the first tight end on that list. So Link, we'll go with you here first. Your thoughts on Brock Bowers being number 38 behind George Kittle, even though everyone's talking about how he's the best tight end right now heading into the season. Your thoughts on that ranking and having, George at 22?
Yeah, Chantel, I don't mind it. I really don't. I think when you break down the players that are before, Brock Bowers, including George Kittle, have all been highly impactful players over their careers. Brock Bowers is going into the second year.
Right.
Let's pace ourselves. Let's not get too carried away. Okay. Like Denny Green said, if you want to crown them, you want to anoint them king, go ahead. Yeah. But he's not there yet. Great player, Brock Bowers, great player, tremendous impact for the Raiders. Had a phenomenal season, past anyone's expectations, including myself, last year. But it's still year 2. We have to see how he reacts. And so you have to take that into consideration. You look at somebody like George Kittle, who I've been impressed with since he's come out of college. He's improved his run blocking. He's improved his pass catching radius. He's improved his impact on the team. And much like the players that we spoke of before him, Brock Bowers, and the ranking, these have all been highly impactful players that have done it for a considerable amount of time, whether quarterback, defensive lineman, however you want to look at it, even Micah Parsons. These have been impact players. So I do think the world of Brock Bowers. I think he's going to progress. If we have the show next year, we're going to talk about him being higher ranked.
Yep.
Still might not be fair, but he's going to be higher ranked than 38. So I think it's right spot on where he should be at this particular point in his career. Q?
Yeah, I have no problem with the rankings. ESPN had him number 1. Locked On, we have him at number 2. That's fine. I'm good with that, right? I mean, still to know the impact that he has put on the National Football League after only 1 year. That's very encouraging for Raider Nation. And as Lincoln said, especially with consistent quarterback play from Geno Smith, I think he'll only be better this year. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers in this Chip Kelly-led offense. So, yeah, it's sky's the limit for him, but it's all about consistency. It's great to do it once. Can you do it again?
Yeah, Link.
All these guys have done that.
Yeah, Link said it's only his second year, so we're going to use the mystical "watch yourself" at drop during when we got to. Yeah, when we got to.
No go.
Yeah. Q, you started it. We just kept on rolling with it. Link tried to fix it with the Janet. What have you done for me lately? But exactly right. I had to get it off the rails again. I will say this: Trey McBride is the next tight end after Max Crosby at number 64, and I think that's pretty fair. So I actually like how they did this ranking. I will say this for a guy like Brock Bowers, and we've talked about him extensively, even though our show has only, been on less than a month, but Brock Bowers, for him to be, getting all this praise heading into this year, there is a lot of pressure on him, I feel, more than his rookie year, because he was kind of the standout on that Raiders offense last year. But even though he's having a lot of pressure, how much do you think a guy like Ashton Genty will kind of help him out a little bit this season, just in terms of his game? Q, we'll go with you first.
I think he's going to help him out tremendously, right? Because now all eyes can't just be on Brock Bowers. Defensive coordinators are going to want to take him away, but they also know that there's this guy named Ashton Genty who, could dominate from out of the backfield. And so as long as the offensive line is doing their job, you have to pick your poison, right? Do you try to load the box and slow things down with the running game? Do you try to shadow and double Brock to take him out of the game? I mean, you can't cover everybody. You can't load up and double everyone. I mean, you only got 11 guys on the defensive side of the ball. So what are you going to do? Pick your poison. It opens up the play action pass. If the running game works successfully like it's supposed to, if the offensive line is doing their job, play action pass is there. It's going to make life better for everybody if they can go execute it correctly. I mean, it's really that simple. The Raiders tried to go with some play action pass last year, but they didn't fool anybody because they didn't have any run game. They were 32nd across the board and everything. So none of that matters. You can fake all you want to fake, but I'm still coming right after you because I know the quarterback got the ball because you can't run it. So that fake don't mean nothing to me.
Well, here's the thing. A running game, I always said, is a quarterback's best friend. So in the event that they are able to create a running game, you make it more for a defensive coordinator to coach against or to plan against. other than obvious passing situations where you can probably see a scenario where a defensive coordinator is trying to take Brock Bowers out of the equation, you got to have the run game. And that's why it's absolutely essential. You got to have more people that you can go to with the football. If you create a vast sort of, a black hole, for example, where you've got 5 guys going out, possible pass catchers, and 5 guys can make a difference in the game, there's a lot more for a defensive coordinator to have to plan for. So to answer your question, Chantel, having a running game is absolutely essential for Brock Bowers' success. Again, there's only one football. But there's got to be a time where you're going to, like much Geno Smith had in Seattle with DK Metcalf, there's a time where everybody was focused on DK Metcalf, including the defense. And so that's why you have to be prepared for that. The more weapons you have, the more options you have, the more valuable you could be at quarterback position, more importantly, at play caller for Chip Kelly to get these guys the football and understand the scenario. There were a lot of times that Brock Bowers stood out last year, guys, with throw up balls.
Yeah.
Where you're throwing it to the high point and using your skills as a taller receiver past the defenders. Well, a lot of those things are going to probably be taken away depending on how defenses want to cover Brock Bowers. But there will be opportunities for him to be open. He just can't be a focal point. And that's why having more weapons in your arsenal is better than ever.
Yeah, and Genty might make the list next year, guys, if we're thinking he's going to have the year that he's going to have. And, when we do this next year, we'll see, where he ranks. And I love the way Q did it in terms of running backs on that list. And it's going to be a really exciting year. Training camp is officially underway. The rookies have reported. We're going to be back next week on Monday at 7:30. Q, looks like you got something to say.
Yeah, let me pass this along. And I saw the note in the comment section. Shamar Turner from the Bears, 2nd round pick, signed his deal. He's, as I looked it up, the number 62nd overall pick. So the 2nd round picks are going to start coming off the board. So that's a good sign for Jack Bech, who was number 58 overall.
Yeah, and we'll have updates for you guys next week. We'll be back Monday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, 10:30 a.m. if you're a Raider fan on the East Coast. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, follow us on our social media channels, and you can find us on the audio side as well. Thanks for rocking out with us, Raider Nation. We'll be back next week. Continue to drop your comments because we love hearing from you. And training camp is underway.